So what is the emotional and social intelligence model that you talk about? So the 5 elements: self-awareness, and I'll explain a little bit. I'll explain in depth in a short while. So let me just read out the 5 elements. So self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, motivation, and social skills. So together, all these 5 develop one's ability. If you need to master, if you can master these 5 skills, allow you to enhance your leadership, social, emotional, and social intelligence. Let me go into the detail. So self-awareness. Self-awareness in the context of emotional social intelligence as defined by Daniel Goleman. He says that it's the ability to recognize and understand your own moods, emotion, drives, as well as the impact on others. Knowing what triggers you, what makes you upset, knowing when it makes you upset, and what and how it is going to impact your other colleagues, your other stakeholders. That's very important. So this is the fundamental belief by many leaders and experts in leadership development that self-awareness is critical. And this is something which I would strongly recommend that you start working on, assessing yourself. How do you do that? You can do a 360, you get some feedback, ask for feedback from your family, from your colleague, at home, children, your spouse. They will be able to give you feedback about certain, your ability to listen, ability, how do you react, what makes you, what triggers you, and so forth, and how you exercise restraint. Second is what was self-regulation, or in the book, he talk about self-control. So it's the ability to control or redirect the disruptive impulses of mood. So when you're upset, knowing you're upset, how do you control? How do you exercise restraint? It's all about the propensity to suspend judgment, to think before acting. When someone makes statement that you feel so strongly about, when someone say or do something that is in violation of your leadership values or beliefs, what do? How do you respond? How do you exercise? How do you convey the message that you have displeasure without harming the existing relationship? How do you be assertive at the same time, ensuring the message is clearly heard but protecting the existing relationship? So it's a fine balance between assertiveness and empathy. So self-regulation, self-control is the second element. Third is about motivation. And here, let's be very clear, and Daniel Goleman defined motivation is the ability or the passion to work for reasons that go beyond money or status. So it's about the propensity to pursue your leadership goals with energy and persistence, despite the ongoing onslaught of challenges that you face in the VUCA world. How do you demonstrate strong drive for excellence? How do you show a sense of optimism in the face of failure, resilience? Because when you talk about the VUCA world, there are a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknown, ambiguity that you're going to face failure. So asking yourself, what do I need to do next? When you fail, how do you bounce and how do you relate back to and be grounded to reality? So that is about optimism, a sense of optimism, but grounded in reality. So, and also, of course, the lastly is about commitment to the organization. Motivation is to steer towards excellence, towards achieving the standards that organization you have set. How do you go about achieving that? So, motivation in this context of organizational leadership for emotional social intelligence is quite broad than what we normally talk about motivation of employee. It's about self-motivation. About how do you drive, how do you steer yourself, how do you have a sense of energy, a sense of optimism and commitment. So that's the third element, motivation. Now next come to the fourth element, empathy. And empathy, as we know, is all about ability to understand the emotional makeup of other people. As we always say, when we talk about empathy, you cannot get away with the saying to put yourself in the shoes of others. Now, it's important to have empathy, because you need to treat people, respond according to their emotional reaction. So you need to be able to understand the difference between empathy and sympathy, because we took at a scale between 1 to 10. It's important to have a 5 in terms of empathy. 1 being apathy, which people who don't care about anything, about what's happening, about others. Or if you have the extreme 10, which is the sympathy, where you're so emotionally connected, sometimes you may face a challenge of not being objective in making decisions or in evaluating the issues at hand. So you need to have empathy, but not sympathy to the other extreme. At the same time, you don't want to have apathy, where you don't show concern and care for others. So that is the 4th element in Daniel Goleman Emotional and Social Intelligence Framework. The 5th element he talked about is social skill. So the social skill is he defined it as the ability or the proficiency in managing relationships with your stakeholders, with your staff, and building networks within the organization and externally. Now, this is a skill, because to build rapport and find common ground is not easy for all. So some people find it easier to do it, some people don't, but it's a skill that can be learned, can be developed and acquired. Now, to be able to do this, you need to have a sense of strong sense of persuasiveness. You need to be able to build team, a highly effective team. So you need social skill or relationship management. And when you need to lead change, when you have change intervention in many organizations today, because of the VUCA world, because of the challenge faced in the VUCA world, you need to be ready to lead change. And leading change will require you to be effective in helping to build the rapport with your team. So the 5 elements of this emotional and social intelligence in the original model, What Makes a Leader by Daniel Goleman, or in the book called Working with Emotional Intelligence, the 5 elements have been very successful in helping leaders to develop the ability to lead and engage the team. Now, Daniel Goleman clearly says in his book, Working with Emotional Intelligence, and he says this, that if your emotional ability are in hand and not in hand, if you don't have a high level of self-awareness, if you're not able to manage your distressing emotions, if you cannot have empathy and have effective relationship, then no matter how smart you are, no matter how high is your IQ, you're not going to get away very, very far. As a matter of fact, probably you may have seen this, Jack Welch, this former CEO, chairman and CEO of GE, one of the last interviews that is given before he stepped down as a CEO of GE General Electric is with Asian Wall Street Journal, and he says this, that one of the challenges that he found to identify leaders and interviewing leaders is that you can have very high IQ or book smart, as he puts it. What is important, the success of leader is depending on the EQ, the ability to read people, the ability to lead people, develop that social intelligence. So that's important. So social intelligence as a leader is more important. How do you engage your team? And this is where you need to do some form of assessment, do a leadership 360, do an emotional and social intelligence assessment. You need to know more, go to my website and you'll be able to get ce-global.com. There are various emotional, social intelligence assessments you can look at.